Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Monday, December 9th. Joining us now, our friend Frank Figliuzzi, FBI Assistant Director, retired. You see him on MSNBC and NBC News all the time as an expert on national security, and his new book, which is a huge hit, Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killers. Frank, nice to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Dean, you say retired. I think it's just tired right now.
Tired. He's a tired guy. So, Frank, you got some energy here, though. You're in between hits, and we are, to be fair, we're pre-recording this during the day, so other developments could happen between now and the time this goes on air. But Frank's in huge demand, so I'm happy to even record it in the afternoon, even if it means some things we missed. We were going to talk more about Kash Patel and FBI. We'll get back to that, but obviously the breaking news, Luigi Mangione and I'm half Italian. You're like, okay, what's going on with Luigi here? What can you tell us as of what we know now in the afternoon?
Yeah, I've been on with Lester Holt. We broke into regular programming on the NBC side, and NYPD held a press conference. They've got a man in custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was grabbed by the PD there, who took a tip from an employee at McDonald's very seriously. Kudos to that employee. Kudos to the local PD. They found a ghost gun on him that seems quite similar, with a suppressor, I might add, similar to the gun that we've all seen in that video. Also, interestingly, fake IDs, including a New Jersey ID that was used at the hostel in New York. We've got an alleged, I hate the word manifesto because it escalates craziness, but the guy does have writing on him in his bag that seems to go toward motivation. We'll learn more about that, but generally against corporate America. What else? Passport. This is a guy who really wasn't working hard to escape. If you're standing ordering McDonald's with all of your crap on you that you used in a murder, you're really not thinking about the escape plan anymore. So I think this is a guy who's going to spout some activist type mentality. Mm-hmm. I will tell you this. I've been through his social media quick review. Very bright young man, to the degree that we can accept what he's saying, say on LinkedIn, right, as true. And I emphasize we can't, verify veracity of what any of us post. Although I believe your postings, Dean, more
Thank you,
than anybody else's. But he says he's got an Ivy League master's degree, UPenn, University of Pennsylvania. I will note Donald Trump went to University of Pennsylvania, so you have that. But very bright kid. His X account is filled with grandiose thoughts about existentialism and the future of human society, the effect of technology on reshaping the human brain, mental health references repeatedly, including as hallucinogenic mushrooms as a treatment for mental health. Lots of deep scattered thoughts, and then just random postings that he calls random post. And he numbers all his random posts, and there's no content to go with those random posts. So here we are. He's being held on the ghost gun charge. That's preliminary to likely a homicide charge in New York City. I can't rule out federal charges because of this manifesto. If he says, I want to change the way the government works for insurance, potential domestic terrorism enhancement to a charge, interstate travel to commit a murder. That gun is illegal, a ghost gun. So we don't know where this is going, but we're glad he's in custody.
How rare is a ghost gun being used in a killing in America now?
Increasingly common. You have access to a 3D printer. And by the way, you don't have to own the 3D printer. You can go, there are libraries that allow you to sign out the 3D printer. You can make this. There's instructions on the internet, and it's illegal. And ghost guns are increasingly being found on the scenes of violent crimes. The ATF, the organization we asked to please get control of this problem. Last time I looked, maybe 3,000 people, maybe, and guaranteed to be shut or greatly downsized on starting January 20th.
And just so people understand, a ghost gun is something that you can manufacture on your own with a 3D printer. Is it made of, I've seen some images, but I just want people, if they haven't seen it, it's made of plastic, of cardboard?
Yeah, primarily high impact plastics, with some, you still really need to insert some metal coils and some things for a firing pin, but more and more you're getting to the majority of the composition being plastic. And I'll point out, people who've carried guns, I've carried a Glock in the FBI toward the end of my career. And that was a lot of plastic, very lightweight, keeps the
Oh,
weight.
really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and what is really shocking, we already have a gun violence problem in America. If you can make ghost guns, even though it's illegal, the more accessible and easy that is to do it, then there's no background checks you can do. You can close every background check loophole in the world, and we should. Don't get me wrong, because you
Yeah.
can still save some lives. But this just goes around the entire system. And people are going to have these printers at home making guns that actually function and can kill people. And you won't be even able to trace it. They can throw it down on the scene if there's no fingerprints. And unless there's something else that matches to a person, they're untraceable. Is that correct?
You are absolutely correct, and that's why they're illegal because they can't be traced. And
Wow.
it'll be interesting to see how the PD handles the ballistic test because the first thing you want to do when you recover a gun is fire, go in the laboratory, fire the gun under lab conditions, and see how the rifling marks on the bullet match the bullets and casings that you've recovered from the scene, from the victim, usually. And a ghost gun complicates that. You might not have normal looking rifling marks. It might not make the same marks. It's a challenge. And you've raised an issue, by the way, that one of us should write a column about because everybody's going to write about, the capture, but I don't know if people are going to write about, oh yeah, what's the ghost gun problem in America? That's a good topic.
It is. And, I read, and tell me if it could have been updated, but they found live bullets at the scene
They did.
of the crime. Is that consistent with a ghost gun? Because I read that maybe it jammed the gun.
Yeah.
Is that likely?
It's consistent with an amateurish attempt at a ghost gun, right? Because if it's jamming on you and you have to eject 3 live rounds, which is a horrible waste of rounds, right? If you're in a shooting situation, then the thing's malfunctioning or you really don't know how to work it. So primitive is probably, we're going to hear it's primitive. The firearms guys in the lab are probably going to say this is really hard to fire. And that's what we probably witnessed on that video.
And yet it still worked, and it killed a man coming out, going to his investors meeting. And what do you make of the bullet casings? What can you share with us about? There were words written on it. How
Yeah.
hard is that to do, first of all? And what does that indicate to you as a former FBI agent?
So my sources are telling me that it was done with a Sharpie marker.
Oh, okay.
So I keep hearing the word etched, scrawled.
Yeah.
I think it was just a marker, which is kind of miraculous that they can still make the words out. And that led me immediately, when we heard this, to say, oh, this guy's been personally wronged by the
Hmm.
healthcare insurance industry. Now, having looked at his social media, I can't, I can see a scenario, Dean, where he wasn't personally wronged, but is pissed largely at society and insurance. We'll know when he talks. And by the way, I predict, it's just a prediction, that he will talk. This is not somebody who's going to clam up. He seems to have an agenda. And if he's carrying a manifesto, kind of wanting to be caught in McDonald's, he's probably going to talk a blue streak, probably. And it may not make sense to anybody. Just be prepared for that.
Right. And of course, as human beings, we have this inherent desire for everyone to have a motive in when they do something. This was a targeted killing. Like I was on vacation out of the country and it made headlines, last week when I was away, and targeted shooting. And like we're being a New Yorker and not living far, honestly, not to give away where I live, but not that far from where that is. It would be more unnerving if it wasn't targeted. Not that I want it to be targeted.
Right.
Then you go, oh, what's targeted? Then we want to go, well, there must be a reason. He obviously targeted this guy coming out of the hotel, going to the investors meeting. He
He
knew he
did.
was the head of UNH. The guy had flown from Minnesota headquarters, I believe, to go
Yes.
there. So it's definitely targeted. The question is, why target him? But Frank, what do you make of? There's an appetite in America for like a Joker scenario from the movie, the first Joker movie. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw it or not, where the Wall
Yes.
Street guys were killed on the train and they make the guy a hero. There's this is a bigger societal issue. There's a growing, I'm not sure if anger is the right word, but I do have some anger to the oligarchs that I feel like we're going to an oligarchy and that we're having less control of our own future and our destiny, where I think it's explaining some of what we're seeing, where some people are actually celebrating this or not, so even those not celebrating it in a way, contextualizing it, which they're really justifying it. And
Yeah.
what does that mean to you about future acts of violence potentially?
So I am disturbed about the reaction that seemingly people happy about this, or at least sympathetic to this, and then everybody sharing their own personal
Yeah.
tragedy, with regard to medical treatment and denials from insurance companies. We've all been there. I personally, in my family, 2 years ago, we had a near tragedy, life and death. The person in our family required an orphan drug that was just invented for a rare disorder, and it cost $30,000 a pop.
Wow.
And this person had to have it every 2 weeks. And we were ready for battle with the insurance company. And thank God, in the first shot, the hospital said, we don't care if the insurance company says, no, we're gonna pick this up. And then we went to a lengthy battle, and it ultimately got approved. But everybody's got their story. I got it. But murder is not how you change an industry. It's
Right.
not. And it's disturbing where we are. And I have to wonder, I know I keep bringing Trump up sometimes, if this incivility, this violent incivility and acceptance of violence hasn't been birthed not only by the insurance industry being really nasty to most of us, but also by an environment created by Trump and his crowd that, yeah, we're going to be violent. We're going to, the ends justifies the means. I will tell you this. I retired from the FBI 25 years, went right into big time corporate security, a Fortune 10 company, one of the largest companies
Wow.
in the world. I understand this firsthand, protecting a giant company's CEO around the world, and the ideology of big time CEOs that I don't need security. I don't want you near me. It's a bad optic. And God forbid if you're armed and you have to shoot somebody, I don't want that happening. So you've got this, this has been a wake up call for my colleagues in corporate security who are all now putting this personal detail on their CEOs, particularly in the insurance industry. They're going virtual for their investors meetings instead of in
Mm.
person. And really, it's a wake up call for CEOs about how many people don't like them.
Look, I'm telling you, I remember about 10 years ago, there were some rich guys who started a group about tax. They actually wanted to be taxed fairly. And they were warning in an op-ed, the pitchforks are going to come for us at some point. And this is no justification of the shooting. And I don't agree with the shooting in any way, zero way. I agree with reforming our system. I agree with Medicare for all. That's what I want to see. Killing a CEO doesn't help anyone. And you think about the guy's family now. Now you think about the families who died from not getting the coverage too. You can make that argument all day, but still, the punishment can't be murder.
Yeah.
It's got to be something different. And look, when I was a lawyer, Frank, I worked in a big law firm in New Jersey, one of the biggest. We represented a lot of big health insurance companies, and I worked on cases denying coverage. I didn't deny, I didn't make the decision. It was given to us in a file. And then our job as lawyers pre-ACA was to find a person being treated for one thing so that you can do rescission of the policy and go, it was fraud. You never told us you were treated for the same thing. Now you want coverage. Thank God the ACA got rid of it. So look, it was ugly doing that work, but I never did it. It wasn't like individual. It was more like we did it because we were a big firm. We weren't doing the little nitty gritty cases. We were doing more bigger, like how to counsel them and how to help them make more money. I mean, it wasn't me doing that, but that was the partners doing, and I was an associate doing research on that kind of stuff. So I always thought that was crappy, and I'm like, wow, this is terrible. So I was so happy when the ACA got rid of pre-existing condition coverage and the exclusions for it that you had to cover it, so we couldn't go through those games anymore. But Frank, there's something deep in our society right now, and I'm telling you,
Yes.
and I don't want to. I don't like Elon Musk. I do not want to see him shot in the streets of anywhere. But
No.
this oligarchy that is happening in front of our eyes, where we've never seen more billionaires pay money to get a president elected, whoever that person is, on the Democrat side as well, and Musk. I really fear you're going to see some of this because it's the sense of you lose your own self-determination as a person and you don't feel like the system can work properly. So when John F. Kennedy said, when you make peaceful revolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. And that applies on a microcosm level as well. If you can't change things,
Yep.
you go to the pitchforks.
Yeah, we've watched the demise or the erosion of credibility in our institutions of government. And now, here's again the wake-up call. It's not just government whose credibility is eroded. It's corporate. It's corporate America on a large level. I'll never forget the impact that a trip to Brazil had on me several years ago, a security-related trip, and the eye-opening experience of the haves and the have-nots. There is no middle in Brazil. You either are wealthy or you're in the favela. I mean, that's a slight exaggeration, but
Right.
what the environment has fostered is extreme violence and no acknowledgement of the sanctity of life. If you get mugged, you're getting shot. If you resist, you're getting shot. And it's all justified. It's all justified as, hey, we're poor, we're dirt poor, and you shouldn't have as much as you have. And I thought to myself at the time, I hope to God we're not headed in that direction in the United States, but I fear that we are.
And something I brought up on the show a few times in the past that always stayed with me, and it was from a comedy show, but it summed up so well. Bono was on Conan, and this is years ago, and he said the biggest distinction between Americans and Europeans is, he goes, you see a big mansion on a hill, and you go, one day I'm going to live in that house. He goes, we see that, and we go, one day we're going to get that son of a bitch, and and you're like, wow, that's really. And now, if
Yeah.
you don't have, if the American dream really is dead for the younger generation. This guy's 26, and that really is a sense of, I can't move up, and the system is rigged against me,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to wait, or I can't change it. Here's how I'm going to change it. I don't care if it doesn't have a lasting impact. At least I feel like I did something. And
Yes.
there's a bigger issue societal here. We're going to see how it plays out, but I think
Yeah.
there's something deeper here.
Yeah, and again, let's not rule out that he's just deeply troubled.
Right.
There are these references to mental health, and I will also point out that early 20s, 21, 22 is when schizophrenia begins to manifest itself, and if untreated, this is where it goes.
Sure.
So we don't know, and the scrawling or the marker on the bullets could be pointing. It could be a distraction that yeah, I was personally wronged, but it could be a distraction. It could be that he's just big time against corporate greed. And somehow the question remains, how did he single out Brian Thompson?
Right.
I note that there's plenty of reporting on that Thompson's in trouble. The company's being looked at. I don't know if you're aware, but this year they had a ransomware attack. Their data was being held for ransom. And the concern seemed to be that if that word got out to the public, the shares would sink. And so top executives at United, including Mr. Thompson, decided to sell off a bunch of stock, like millions of
Oh,
dollars of stock. Yeah.
wow.
So yeah,
I didn't know that.
there's insider trading allegations there,
That's
and many people lost their shirt who had invested in United because the executives caused once. Not only did the ransomware attack become public, but they're selling off of the stocks caused the stock to sink even further.
it's an expensive stock. It's like over $400 a share type of stock. UNH is one of the top stocks in the market. People
Yeah.
become millionaires from UNH. So, well, actually, we're going to see how it develops. And, everything I just said, again, to be clear, I am not defending this shooter. And what I'm saying to me is, I'm actually looking at societal. The way people reacted to this caught me off guard.
Yes, indeed.
That's
Me too.
that's what caught
Me
me
too.
off guard. And so it touched into something deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw today before we came on air, someone put up a big thing in Chicago over the highway, like hanging over the overpass with the three words that were written on the bullets, and they hung it like a mural. Now it could be
Yeah.
that's one person, right? But that gets amplified everywhere, and other people see it. And that's what I'm getting at. Like there's something deeper. This guy could be all trouble in the world. They cannot be making a statement, but others see a statement there. And I wonder where this goes. And time will tell. I mean, we'll see. I'm chatting with a friend, Frank Figliuzzi. So, Frank, we got a little bit left here. I want to touch on Kash Patel. You wrote a really good article for MSNBC about him. Trump wants to fire Christopher Wray. I guess he's not president, so he can't formally fire him yet, but he's going to. And he wants Kash Patel. And you write, Kash Patel records show no devotion to the Constitution, but blind allegiance to Trump, which is exactly why he's picking him. Could you share what are your concerns about Kash Patel as FBI director, as someone
Yeah.
who's worked in the FBI for 25 years?
I mean, here's where I am, and this is a sad state of affairs. The incompetency and lack of qualifications of Kash Patel is the least of my concerns right now. It's the blind allegiance to one human being that will sit in the Oval Office. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just take the words of Kash Patel, who has repeatedly and publicly said that he intends to pursue prosecutors and investigators. By the way, his language is basically an echo of Pam Bondi, the AG nominee, and her language, like they coordinated this for the benefit of their master, Donald Trump. And what you're going to, so the FBI, it's funny, the MAGA movement claims the FBI was turned into a weapon against Biden's enemies. There's zero evidence of that. And I'm going to keep saying that every time someone tries to tell me this. There's zero evidence of criminality. Every time someone looked hard at the origins of the Russia case, including the DOJ IG, including a guy by the name of John Durham, whose sole mission in life was tasking by Bill Barr to find something wrong with the Russia investigation. He didn't find anything. Tried two trials
Right.
regarding the origins of the Russia case. Nothing. They went nowhere. Jury wasn't buying it. GOP Senate, Intelligence Committee, GOP controlled, found that Russia did interfere. So did Bob Mueller, that they interfered. Lots of indictments from that, including 24 Russians. So I don't want to hear about this deep state nonsense that seems to be the justification for going after good people who just did their job. You may not like the Russia case or where it went, but don't tell me there's criminality there. And if you're going to waste resources pursuing people and ruining their lives and their families' lives and jeopardizing their physical safety, when you put somebody on a list and tell the MAGA lunatics that have been violent, yeah, these guys are bad guys. They're evil. Somebody's going to get hurt. So yeah, real concerns of that. Replacing allegedly the top 100 people in the FBI with political appointees. Oh my God. What are you going to do with that? And the deputy director is going to be a layman, a civilian? That doesn't happen. No one's going to know what they're doing at the Bureau. So real concerns there. I'm glad, I think, that Trump has signed an MOU with DOJ to permit FBI background investigations of his nominees, but my sources tell me they haven't received the names yet of which ones are they going to be doing? Are they, is the FBI going to do the background on their director? Wow. Okay. When is that going to get done? After Kash Patel's in charge? And then I know I'm rambling, but last but not least, perhaps, is even if he doesn't get confirmed ultimately, Kash is allowed to be an acting director for a minimum of 7 months. That's by law. So, and if Senate's wrangling with it, they can go longer. Remember Chad Wolf at DHS? He was never the secretary. So you can do a lot of damage in 7 months, my friend.
So if they were to replace the top 100 people with civilian picks, just political appointees who, as you write about Kash Patel, are more devoted to Trump than our Constitution, does the FBI have the resources in a way to become, I don't want to be extreme, but like the East Germany Stasi? Like,
Yes.
Can they be a secret police
Yes.
that
Yes.
just do the bidding of the leader and do surveillance of all political opponents and critics?
Yeah. As I say in my piece for MSNBC, I use the example of the J. Edgar Hoover era, because when people say, "Oh, come on, you're exaggerating," nope. We had a director who abused his authority and did all kinds of illegal things. And by the way, it wasn't just him. He had the approval of 2 presidents and an attorney general. Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon knew damn well what Hoover was doing to the Black Panthers, MLK. Bobby Kennedy, and I know people get shocked at this, Bobby Kennedy got briefed on the illegal wiretapping of MLK and said, yeah, go for it, go. So yes, this can happen again. And people go, well, after Hoover died, Congress held hearings. It was called the Church Committee, and they put serious guardrails in place. We have AG guidelines now about how the FBI can open a case. They have to go to court for even a national security wiretap. Yeah, those are guidelines. Those are guidelines. And since 9/11, things have changed to make it easier for the FBI to chase down a threat, right? We applaud that. In the FBI, there's a thing called a threat assessment. It's not a full-blown case. You can do a lot under a threat assessment. Then you jump up to a preliminary inquiry. You can do informant development. You can do a pen register on your phone. All of this you can do a trash cover. You can go through your trash. You can do a mail cover, looking at the outside of the envelope on your mail, see where you bank, see who's writing to you, see who you're sending mail to, under a PI. So when people say, no, you can't have abuses again. Oh, yes, you can.
And the last thing, Frank, in our last minute here, is there anything now the Biden administration could be doing to protect the FBI?
So in one of my articles, one of my columns, I said the that Biden has the authority right now to open the background investigations on Trump's nominees. Now, people started flipping out. Oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. We're living in extraordinary times that require extraordinary measures. I'd rather see a finalized FBI background report before Kash Patel becomes the FBI director. I'm not going to apologize for that. Let's see. We could, Biden could try to pass executive orders that say the deputy director must be a career professional. That would be helpful. If I could wave a magic wand, those AG guidelines would be law, but we'll never get that through Congress.
Right.
Guidelines are guidelines. So I guess the short answer is there's not a whole lot here that can be done.
Well, Frank, I thought we're gonna have to leave it. Frank Figliuzzi, follow him. Are you on Blue Sky now? Where are you? Are you on?
I am, and I'll tell you what. I've lost I don't know, 40,000 followers on X, but more than made up for that on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram.
I like Blue Sky a lot. I've been actually interacting with people. I tend not to interact on social media,
and there's some civility there.
Yeah, there is. Frank, thank you so much for making time on a busy day. I look forward to chatting with you, brother. Take care.
Stay well.